Now, starting off with this graph can be a great way to practice all these different little facts that we've been talking about with graphs and with their derivatives and all that kind of stuff. So take a moment, take a look at that graph, and figure out what each of these would be, and figure out how you would find each of them. And by all means, pause the video and write them down as practice. All right, now that you've been able to do that, let's check our answer. So these are each of those values that we come up with. Now I know I wrote maxima here, which is the plural of maximum. There did just happen to be one maximum, but by writing maxima, we're allowing for the possibility there might have been more than one. Same thing with minima, that is the plural of minimum. Now, of all the different little pieces in here, just looking at the graph, it could be that these would be the trickiest of them, so let's just take a quick moment on those. The points of inflection, that's any point where it changes from concave up to concave down. So if you could see those parts a little bit more easily, then it lets you find the point of inflection a little more easily from the graph. So as I take a look at this, I'm seeing it's concave up all the way through there. It's opening up, like it could hold water like a cup there. A cup is concave up like that. But then it starts going to concave down right at that point. And so then that means that that's where it becomes our point of inflection, because that's where it changes from concave up to concave down. Now, looking at the visual here, starting with the graph and identifying each of those pieces, it's a nice way to practice each of those pieces. But the thing is that there is another use for finding each of these little descriptors that we found over here. And that's for actually starting there and then making a graph based off of that information. So we're going to take a look at an example of that, where we can take all of that information and we can sketch what the graph is doing based on all of that detail. So take a moment on your own, sketch out what do you think this graph would look like based on this information before we do it together here in a moment. All right, so I set up a graphing grid. I spread it out just so I have lots of room to be able to draw it in side to side. And in this particular case, I actually have some very distinct points in here. These are actual coordinates that I need to plot on my graph. So I'm going to start by plotting each of those. Just having done that already tells me a lot about what's going on in this graph. In fact, you could get a pretty decent graph just from those points, but we can get a little bit more detail in terms of what all is going on in here. And in particular, the concavity is going to be useful for us to be able to see here. Because, for instance, we can see here that it's concave up from negative infinity up to negative 4. So that means that between negative infinity, or my farthest left on my graph here, up to negative 4, I'm going to have to be increasing my slope throughout that entire time. But then it goes concave down from negative 4 to negative 1, which means that between negative 4 and negative 1, I got to be having it make a little bit more of a frowny face there. I got to show that it's going to be concave down. All right, then I go back to concave up from negative 1 up to 3. So again, it should be the shape of a cup, It's going to be concave up there. And then finally we're back to concave down the entire rest of the way. So we know that it's not going to be doing, for instance, one of these kinds of things, because there it's switching back into concave up. We know it's going to stay going concave down all the way as it goes. All right, now just using that, I didn't even look yet at the increasing and decreasing parts. Let's just take a moment and make sure that that also fits. So is our graph actually increasing from negative 5 to negative 3? Negative 5 to negative 3. Yes, it is increasing in there, so that's good. And then is it also increasing from 1 to 5? So from 1 up to 5, yes, it was increasing the entire way through there as well. You could do the same thing with the decreasing just to verify, and yes, it is in fact decreasing over each of those three intervals as well.